Been a lot in the news about Jamie Lynn Spears.
Okay.
And I'm not a fan.
No?
Team Britney, bitch. So, in honor of our gal Britney, today's theme, toxic. We're going to get flagged for copyright. You're imposing on Britney's copyright. So, let's just get to it.
Okay, let's do it.
Let's dive in.
Sick.
Yeah, I'm scared. Some of these stories are just like off the rails. Like these people deserve coal. I don't know. They just deserve not good things. Like their zipper on their pants to break. Their tire to get flat on their car. Like petty things, but not. I don't want to wish ill on them.
No,
but like they're fucking assholes.
Like a razor scooter to the ankle.
Yes.
Yeah?
God, that pain is like no other.
It's almost like too far.
That might be too far.
Yeah.
Might be too cruel.
Too cruel and unusual.
Oh, God, but I'm just going to start. Here we go. Okay. My female 42 sister, female 39, told my son that she is going to be his mother because I have terminal cancer.
Okay, let's hear more.
Yeah, this isn't going to be good.
You always hit me with these, like, just absolute.
I want to find this woman and spit gum on her.
Okay.
I have stage 4 breast cancer. It's terminal. I'd most likely have 2 years or less left. Because of this, I'm spending as much time as possible with my son, who is 14, and my family. Just for extra information, I am a widow. My late husband was killed by a hit-and-run driver years ago. A week ago, I overheard a conversation between my sister and my son. She was telling him that since his mother, me, was going to die, she will be his mother. I was horrified. My son strangely seemed to agree, but he was in tears. My sister wasn't. I'm quite close to my sister, so I know that she really loves my son. She has never had a child herself, and she kind of treats my son like her own. I had a problem with it, but she told me she was just loving him, so I put it aside. I didn't know it would escalate to this. I confronted her a few days ago after careful thinking. I asked her why she told my son that without asking me first, and she said, "But isn't that the truth?" To be honest, I am not sure if I can trust my sister with my dear son. I never really thought she was fit to be a mother, especially not to him. I said that it would be my choice, not hers. She agreed, but she said she was the most suitable person to parent him. Her exact words were, quote, "I will take care of him well. You wouldn't need to worry. I will be a good mother to my son's name." I don't want my sister to be my son's mother. I am not on my deathbed, but I am nearing my end. It just really breaks my heart to hear my sister talking about how she'd take over my position as a mother when I go. My sister said she'd give me space to think. What do I do? I know I shouldn't be on Reddit for this, but I have exhausted the people in which I can ask advice from. Thank you.
What is there to think about?
I guess if she still puts in her will that, like, rights would go to her sister.
How old is the boy?
14.
Okay, so he needs like a legal guardian.
Yeah, at least 2 years.
I think what's tripping me up about this story is like the wording. I think it's the language, and that just goes to show how powerful language can be. What turns me off is like the sister saying, "I will be his mother." He doesn't need a mother. He has a mother, and even after his mother passes away, he doesn't need a new mother. He needs a guardian. He needs
a guardian,
like a supervisor and a family member, somebody he can rely on and, you know, be a role model and support him, but he doesn't need another mother. So I think what turns me off so much about this is her sister basically self-determining that she will be the new mother of her son, when that's just so inappropriate. And even if she was going to declare a new mother for her son, it would be OP's decision, not a self-proclaimed relative getting to just claim that title.
No, I completely agree. I think her saying, "Oh, I'll be your mother," unhinged.
Yeah.
You're not his mother.
Absolutely not. He doesn't need a mother.
You're not his mother. You didn't birth him. You didn't adopt him and raise him from an infancy. You didn't foster parent him.
No.
There's like no application here to where you would even be considered his mother.
Correct.
You're his aunt who is doing a great service to your sister after her passing to look out for her son,
Right.
to care for her son, to support him. You're not his fucking mother.
No, and like I said, I think the only person who bears that decision is the OP, the actual mother. One day when her son becomes an adult at 18 and has, you know, autonomy, he can then say, would you be my bonus mom? You know what I mean? He can decide, you're like a mother to me. Sure, but this aunt cannot just declare herself a mother. That just turns me off so much. I think it's so wrong.
It's so wrong.
It's insensitive too.
Well, and it's, 14 is still, it's very young in the sense that, you're not driving yet. You don't have a lot of responsibilities. You're still a kid. 14 is young. You're still a kid. And so he's probably trying to wrap his head around this diagnosis and like this timeline where I could lose my mom in a year. I could lose my mom in 2 years. And like having someone take advantage of him and he's such a vulnerable kid. The aunt is taking advantage of him. She is being so cruel to this little boy who's probably already struggling with so much.
Yeah.
And then to just kind of latch onto those vulnerabilities. He's scared about losing his mom. He probably does want his mom, a mom. So for him to agree in that moment, it's kind of like, yeah, you're right. He's probably just so scared.
I think about my sister who's 14 and how that is a very vulnerable age. It's a very formable age, if that's the word, where you're still obviously have 10 plus years left of development, your prefrontal cortex, all of those things. Those are such forming years, like your teens.
You're a little sponge still.
You're still a little sponge, and losing your mom at any age is so scary. I mean, the thought of losing my mom at, the tender age of 27 scares me, but I can't even imagine at 14. And he feels vulnerable because once his mom does pass, and since his dad was tragically killed, he doesn't have anybody. So he's probably thinking, yes, of course I'm going to say, I want you to be my mom. You're the only thing I'll have left. And he probably loves his aunt, but as an aunt. And it's just, everything about this to me is wrong on all cylinders. From the way that she approached it, the way that she discussed it with the son without going to her sister first, the language being used, I will be your mother. All of this is so wrong to me. I would be wildly infuriated. Infuriated? That's
You're
a word.
so mad you can't even say it.
Yeah.
Infuriated.
Whoa.
Here we go again.
Words are hard.
Words are hard.
Words are hard.
Infuriated.
Okay.
That sounds right.
I'm gonna, that one.
Let me know, guys. You always do.
I don't know.
Let me know.
You know what, though? I will say, because I have listened to your episodes where people correct your language and your words or whatever. I think I mess up words a lot, and I know that I do. But I think if you say words confidently, say it with your chest, you almost have people wondering if they're saying it wrong. And I think that's the key. Just say it so confidently that people don't question it.
I try. They still do.
Well,
yeah, I completely agree. I'm trying to find it on Reddit because I want to read the comments on this one. And I took the screenshot ages ago. So, found the post. Top comment, 1.6 thousand upvotes. Yeah, I think this is pretty gross. Of course this isn't what you want, but the fact that she is your sister does not automatically mean that she is the most logical choice to care for your son. You get to choose that person, or people. Maybe it's her, maybe it's someone else, but you get to choose based on who will respect your wishes and raise your son accordingly, and that may not be her. Also, she will never be his mother. You are not replaceable. You are the only mother he will ever have. He knows that, even if your sister is clueless and cruel. I am so sorry you are going through this.
bingo. He does not need another mother.
No. I think, too, kind of what this person said, you need someone who will respect your wishes and raise your son accordingly. And I look at making the choice of who you would want to take care of your child after you're gone. And I would not want someone who is already, before I'm even gone, starting to disrespect my role and my memory.
Yeah, totally. It's like you're already proving that you are actually not a fit choice.
Completely.
Mm-hmm. It's like the bed is still warm. Like, why do people rush into taking over other people's roles and responsibilities before that person's even, you know what I mean? It's so preemptive. It's so unnecessary. The fact that you can even mentally like go there. Like, I know you're trying to maybe be proactive and make sure that like the intentions might or might not be good to make sure that the son knows he's going to be taken care of. Let your sister know her son's in good hands, but you're going about it so wrong. And just like,
it's so cruel.
Yeah. I don't have any other word other than it's very cruel.
It's cruel. I have experienced something like this like recently. Like my mom's longtime partner, he's been in my life since I was like 7, 9, I don't even know, but they've been together forever. They're engaged. They were planning on like an Italian wedding, and then he got diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. And so it was like a couple weeks after, like he had just gotten the diagnosis, and people were already coming at him being like, well, like, who's your life insurance policy going to? Like,
what?
Like, who are you leaving this to? Who are you leaving that to? And it's like, he just got his fucking diagnosis. We don't even know, like, anything yet.
Yeah.
I don't even think he had started chemo at that point. And, like, it's just, like, to me, I'm like, that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Do you love the person or not?
Right. That stuff, there are certain loose ends that maybe need to be tied up, like make sure your will is, like, correct and all that stuff. But there's a time for those types of questions and housekeeping items. And I think timing is important. I think like messaging is important. It just goes to show that the way that you do something, you know, really does matter. It can make a difference. If she had gone about this completely differently, had maybe approached her sister and been like, hey, this isn't something you want to think about, but it's a reality. And I want to make sure that you know that if your son needs somebody, I'm there for him. And whoever you decide wants to be like his primary guardian, I will support and I will do everything I can to protect him. But I just want you to know, like, I'm here for you. Yeah. And gone about it that way and not called herself the son's new mother and pulled the 14-year-old aside to have a conversation about it with him directly. I think this could look completely differently.
Yeah, it's also the fact that like she overheard it, but it almost seems like grooming is used typically for a very like sexual way, like you're grooming a little kid or like a younger adolescent, whatever. But it almost seems like that. It almost seems like she's planting these little seeds.
Like priming.
Priming, yeah. Grooming wouldn't be the right term in this sense. I'm sure there is an appropriate one.
Priming him. Priming is, I forget, took like psychology classes in college, but it is something where you're like pretty much planting the seed and you're getting ready for that.
Well, and it's almost like she wants him to like trauma bond to her.
Yes.
Or something. It's icky. This whole thing is fucking gross.
Yeah, I don't like it.
This woman,
I don't like it at all. That wouldn't go over well with me if I was a 14-year-old. I'd be like, I have mom things.
Yeah. No, she is something else. I don't know if there's much between those two ears of hers. Because this is fucking bad. That's a nice way, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
You know,
yeah.
You didn't say it.
I didn't technically say anything mean. This was posted at today's date. This was posted 2 months ago. I'm just seeing if there's any comments from OP. No comments.
Nada.
Nothing. So it kind of flew under the radar. I hope that she found, the answer, the support she was looking for.
When was this posted?
2 months ago.
The post?
Mm-hmm. But hopefully everything goes okay. On to the next one.
Okay.
We have talked about sign language before on this podcast, and you know a little sign language.
I do.
You used to be fluent, right?
No, I know sign language. For those who are listening, I just signed that. I was never fluent. I took like 3 years of sign language, so enough. I have communicated with people in the deaf community, but definitely not fluent.
Yeah, no, I think I hear about really memorable experiences from people on Twitter or TikTok about I was in Subway and the Subway workers couldn't communicate with this person that was deaf, and he was just trying to order a simple sandwich. And I knew sign, so I helped him. And I remember there was one time we got in an Uber, and just we're playing this, it's gonna make me cry. But a lot of the Ubers, if they are deaf or hard of hearing, it'll say on your app, and you got in the car and you sat in the front seat so you could sign and actually talk to him.
Yeah.
And it was, it was so
I still got you remember that.
Yeah. We were in South Bay somewhere going out. Yeah.
And I remember he was happy about it.
I think you got out of the car and you're like, I'm the first person that's ever signed in his Uber to him. Yeah.
I love sign language, and I wish I used it more. I wish I had an opportunity to use it more.
Yeah.
I think it's beautiful, absolutely beautiful. When I see people signing in public, I always just am in awe, but you're actually not supposed to watch people signing because it's eavesdropping, like on the conversation. It's very invasive. So
It's just so beautiful.
I know, I try not to look, but I think it's so beautiful, and I'm a hand talker as it is, so sign
Same.
language is like right up my alley.
Same.
Oh, I love. And then we have a good friend who Noelle is very fluent in sign language.
Yeah.
Obviously, she grew up with 2 deaf parents.
Yeah. It's an amazing language and one I'm going to make an effort this year to start learning.
Yay!
Yeah. So, this one. Am I the asshole for setting an ultimatum with my sister over sign language?
Okay.
Hi all, I, 30 female, am hearing. Married to a deaf man, 32 male. I'm going to call him Walter. And we have a deaf daughter, 6 female. I'll call her Cora. Walter comes from a primarily deaf family, but my family is all hearing. We have chosen to raise Cora with sign language and not go for an implant. This is simply for context. I am not seeking judgment on this. Before Walter and I got married, my parents began to take classes to learn ASL, as did my brother and his family. My sister, Emily, took them for a bit but ended up not continuing due to, quote, lack of interest. She and her husband have not taken any lessons, nor have their 3 children. Walter tried introducing their daughter to baby sign when she and Cora were both very young, but my brother-in-law asked him to stop, as he didn't want to, quote, confuse her.
Confuse her of what?
Idiot.
People teach their babies sign language all the time.
Babies literally will babble in sign language.
Sign language is isn't that a thing? Sorry,
Yes.
I'll let you finish.
No, it is literally the time to teach your kids multiple languages. They're little sponges.
Yeah.
Cora and her cousins play as best they can with the language barrier, but it's extremely frustrating for her to feel like she isn't being understood. When my brother's children, who visit only a few times a year, visit, they interpret for her, or Walter and I have to constantly be looking over their shoulders to help resolve their miscommunications, which is too helicopter parent for me. When we learned Cora was deaf, Emily pestered me about getting her an implant and continues to send me shamey Facebook posts about the benefits of the implant and those videos of babies hearing for the first time. She constantly says it's, quote, better than having to learn 2 languages. She's very pushy about it, to the point she and Walter got into a heated argument over it. Since then, she has not pestered him about it, only me. My last straw was this past weekend. Emily was with all her kids, teaching them a game. I noticed that Cora wasn't joining, so I brought her over and Emily outright told me that Cora couldn't play because it's a game, quote, for people who can speak. I was fuming and pulled her aside. I told her that my daughter can communicate, just not how Emily wants, and said that I won't have my daughter excluded for something so petty. I told Emily that we will be cutting contact unless she starts putting in effort, learning ASL, teaching her kids, including Cora, and not being so disrespectful. We got in a spat about it, so my family left. Emily has not had contact since. My parents think I'm being unfair to Emily, but agree she should make more of an effort, and my brother has completely agreed with me. Walter feels like I've been extreme, but I'm honestly frustrated that I haven't been this extreme sooner. I do worry that I'm being clouded by mama bear rage, and this is actually super irrational, so I think I might be the asshole. So, who's the asshole?
No, Emily is the asshole. Sorry. Period.
Fuck Emily.
Period. Like I don't have mama bear cloud judgment because I'm
No.
not a mom, and I also don't have bias towards the hearing world. Well, I guess I am a part of the hearing world, but like the deaf community. Like I personally am not deaf. I don't have a deaf family member, but I'm enraged by this. I think it's absolutely inappropriate, and I think it's disgusting that. First of all, sign language is beautiful. I think it's very beneficial to have your babies learn sign language, not even for the purpose of communicating with their family, like their cousins, but it's actually, I don't remember the benefits, but there's actually a benefit to teaching your child sign language at a young age. I don't see how it can hurt. I think that's what angers me.
Yeah.
Is in what world does learning another language or learning another way to communicate ever hurt someone?
No. And sign language isn't just for,
No.
deaf children either, or deaf people, but I have a lot of OTs that I know that actually, with kids that are on the autism spectrum, they have a really tough time
Or
with language
nonverbal.
sometimes. There can be kids that are nonverbal, and so the way that they communicate is sign.
Yeah.
And so it's like, to me, I'm like, this lady is on some serious hallucinogenic drugs.
You know what it's giving? It's giving the "This is America, we speak English" vibes.
Yeah.
It's
That's
like
my thought exactly.
You know, like this is the hearing world where like your daughter can't play because we have to talk, you know? And it's like, first of all, her daughter can communicate, as the mom said, just in a different way. I'm just so angry because I think I love sign language so much and I don't see how it can hurt.
Yeah.
I don't see how teaching your kids sign language, first of all, don't you want them to have a relationship with their cousin? And if learning a second language is the means for that, they're better off for it because they're going to grow up and they're going to know sign language. And guess what? When you're more fluent in another language, you're more likely to pick up a third language even more easily.
Yeah.
It exercises a part of your brain at a young age that is so important.
Yep.
I just don't.
I'm completely baffled. I want to fact check this, but I actually feel like I saw something recently where kids who sign versus or kids that can sign versus kids that just as babies grow up speaking, I think they can communicate their needs to their caregivers a lot sooner. I'm not sure. I want to fact check that, but I also just thought about the fact too, like, I feel disadvantaged that I'm not fluent in multiple languages. Like, I feel disadvantaged. I feel like it's such a benefit in all aspects to know multiple languages. Even like looking long-term down the road, if you learn languages, you can play instruments, or even if you're older, like 40s, 50s, 60s, and you start learning another language, that can prevent or decrease the risk of developing like Alzheimer's.
I knew you were going to say that, like dementia.
Yeah, like the more we work our brains, the more longevity you're going to have. So like, granted, this little girl's fucking 6, but like,
who does it hurt?
There's no cons.
I just want to, like, who does it hurt? I want to sit in front of her sister and be like, why are you so opposed to your children learning another language? I just can't think of one drawback other than it inconveniences you because you have to put in more work to like teaching them the language. But the best way to learn sign language, any language really, is exposure. And they're going to get the best exposure just trying to communicate with Cora.
Yeah.
And Walter and OP, who is clearly like fluent in sign language. Like, to me, I'm like, their kids are going to learn another language so much easier because they get to practice it with their family members as a means of communication.
I don't get it. I also think, as like, say I was the cousin in this case and my mom restricted me from learning sign or like didn't encourage it and I like was missing out on this cousin, I would feel so much resentment for my for my mom. Like,
when you were older and you find out the reason you can't communicate with Cora is because your mom barred you from learning sign language at a young age.
Yeah. Like, they're missing out on such an important, or what could be an important relationship. Like, who knows? So that annoys the fuck out of me. I do just want to like commend OP because I think on one of the past stories we read, it was about a woman who was going to have ASL at her wedding.
I remember that.
And to me, I'm like, this is like such an opposite take of what her like parents did for her. Like, the woman that got married, her parents got the cochlear implant, didn't let her learn sign language. And she felt alienated from people that are like her. She didn't feel like she belonged. And so, you know, this little girl, to grow up in such a supportive environment and have a mom who just like really advocates for her it's such a breath of fresh air.
It's so beautiful. And the cochlear implant is such a personal decision. I think that's another thing we haven't really touched on is how inappropriate it is that she's sending her
Facebook posts and like harassing her,
telling her encouraging her to go for the cochlear implant. That's her decision. And the cochlear, she's really doing that out of a place of self-interest because she thinks it makes her life easier. Like, if your daughter has a cochlear implant, she can communicate the way we communicate and we won't have to worry about a quote unquote language barrier.
It's easier for you.
Exactly.
It's like, what's that sound? To you.
To you. Yeah, to you.
To you.
It's almost, I wonder if her sister is like embarrassed. I don't know if she thinks maybe signing in public, people look at them. Maybe she thinks that it makes them stick out. Like, her sister has some type of insecurity because I don't know what person in this world would be so against teaching their children another language to communicate with their family members.
Despicable.
Yeah.
Top comment has some thoughts about what the sister is.
Okay.
Not the asshole. Emily is ableist. Worse, she's ableist, yet somehow thinks she's better informed than you on implants and other options for supporting your deaf child. If she doesn't want to learn ASL, so be it. But she needs to at least acknowledge that choice means she's the one creating obstacles to communication with her niece, not the other way around.
Yep.
Frankly, I'm surprised Walter is encouraging you to keep the peace here. Keep her in timeout. Keep her in timeout and away from Cora until she changes her attitude. And if the rest of the family can't back you up on that, they can keep their distance too. Yeah, kudos to the brother.
Kudos, for sure. He's kept his composure.
Yeah, and like, I think Walter is probably just trying to keep the peace. Like, doesn't want to break up his wife's family.
Yeah.
But
yeah. I don't know. Walter's definitely. It's good that he's kind of balancing them a little bit, but our OP. I mean, oof. I would be health of no fury.
let her kick rocks.
Yeah.
Kick rocks, bitch. Yeah. The comments on this, there's a lot of comments.
Are people just absolutely up in arms?
Yeah, people were really appalled. They were like, no, not yes.
No, not at all. It's so sad. Like, we see this a lot on Reddit, and you know, in doing this podcast, is so many people who ask, "Am I the asshole?" And it just goes to show, when you're in a situation, it's so hard to decide to know whether or not you're like crossing the line. Am I wrong for that? But like, objectively, when other people hear the story, they're like, the fact that you even think you're the asshole.
Yeah.
It's so much harder when you're in it, and it's your family members, and it's your emotions, and it's your child. But when we hear it with no skin in the game, we're like, no, you're not the asshole.
I know. This is an interesting take, though. I screenshotted this one, and it goes, as a disabled person, I'm not so sure. OP, you absolutely have the right to decide as a family that your daughter will not get the implant and will communicate using ASL, and your sister has zero say over that. Moreover, she will always need to accommodate Walter by either learning ASL or, if he reads lips, learning to speak more slowly and turning towards him every time. However, not getting the implant was a choice not to be able to hear, in a way, and not to be able to interact with hearing people using speech. It's a choice, just like not learning. ASL is a choice. I think it's a bad choice to not learn a language that your brother-in-law and Nibbling need to communicate, but it's a choice. I happen to be of the opinion that all levels of ability should be accommodated by society, but this is interpersonal, not official. Who should accommodate whom with their choice? Should your child get a cochlear implant to make things easier on all of her hearing family, or should her hearing family learn ASL to make things easier on her? I know that learning ASL would be a good thing for your sister to do, but I'm not sure I'm ready to call her an asshole for not doing it. The thing she is an asshole for is playing a game when your daughter is present that requires hearing. Those games can be played any other time. Extended family needs to include everyone.
That's a really interesting take.
Yeah.
And it is eye-opening, and I see parts of that I can kind of agree with. I think the reason I still stick to my opinion is because I think learning sign language, learning another language is an asset. Worst case scenario, her kids walk away with another language and another proficiency that they can maybe use in other aspects of their life. Maybe one of them goes off and marries a deaf woman or man, and now they have this, you know what I mean? You just don't know. Versus Cora getting a cochlear implant, sure, that makes her feel like she's a part of the hearing world. It doesn't undo her deafness. It doesn't make her hearing. That's not what cochlear implants do. And if anything, you know, the cochlear implants have a way of almost sometimes making somebody feel, I can imagine, as a non-deaf person, I'm just trying to imagine what that would feel like there's something wrong with me and I have to fix it with this machine.
Yeah.
Or this machine will help the quality of my life. And it's a personal choice whether or not to get that. And your family can make a choice to learn a skill or learn a language that to better communicate with you. I guess that's the difference, is I see again, there's just, you learn sign language. Yes, that is a choice, absolutely. And they have a choice or a right to not learn it or not want to have to adapt. But I see no harm in doing so.
Yeah.
Versus getting a cochlear implant can lead to other maybe like identity, confidence, you know, like the ableist comment.
Yeah.
It leads to just, there's more detriment possibly.
Yeah, and I think too, like, maybe the sister doesn't understand that, like, a cochlear implant isn't, like, it is a surgery. It requires surgery. And it also isn't like, oh, you turn it on and
You're just hearing all
hearing.
of a sudden.
No, like, it doesn't work like that. It is like a lot of people in videos I watched after the last story, like, a lot of people described it as traumatic.
Yeah. And listen, I'm not like saying there's anything wrong with cochlear implants. What I'm saying is it's a personal choice.
Yeah.
I think cochlear implants, if that's what somebody wants to do, great. And I know from taking sign language, when I took sign language, my professor was deaf. And so I learned, and he immersed us so much in the deaf community, and we learned about like those who like go for the cochlear implant and those who don't. And so I don't think there's anything wrong with that decision, but it's a decision and they didn't want to go with that. So, I mean, I respect that decision. I can't respect somebody's ignorance to wanting to communicate with their family member. You know, like I had to learn Spanish in order to communicate with half of my family. That was technically a choice. My mom could have said, no, we live in America and I just want her to know English. She'll get by learning just English.
Which a lot of, I think, like a cultural thing too to consider is like I have a lot of friends in grad school who their parents were first generation Americans and they chose not to teach their kids their native language so they'd fit in.
Right, correct. That's an assimilation thing.
Yeah, and so they are, like, a lot of them are sad about it. And it's just like, I think languages are kind of like people in situations, like the more the merrier.
Oh, maybe I'm like the wrong person for this story because I'm so biased in the sense that if I have children, I've already decided that I want them to know at least 4 languages.
Yeah,
That's on
I feel
like
the
the
same
low
way.
end. Yeah.
I think like language immersion schools, if you can afford it, are so cool.
It's beautiful. And
Yeah.
if you can't, just taking as much, I mean, there's Babbel, there's so many things you can
Community
take now.
classes.
Yeah, in schools, you know, you can take 3 years of a language and you can, I mean, my mom took French for 3 years and my mom and my grandma are fluent in English, Spanish, and French. I think that's beautiful. I would love to know another language.
I know, I gotta get on it.
Same.
I think there's gonna be a Babbel ad on this episode.
Wow. Give me the code.
So if there is,
I think that's
this is where we'll cut to it.
I'm a language advocate, so.
Okay, up next. I did not read this one. It was sent to me, and just based on the title, I was like, okay, I'm just gonna save it.
Sold. Okay.
Yeah,
So
sold.
it's a true blind, a double blind.
Double blind. Double blind.
double blind.
Like a study.
Right.
Yeah. My 27 female husband, 30 male, posted on here to cry about the open marriage he asked for.
Okay. Be careful what you wish for.
I'm pretty sure my husband has been posting on here about our marriage, and since he wants strangers all up in our business, let's do it.
Oh, she really did that.
Uh-huh. He talked about how he asked for an open marriage because I never wanted to have sex with him, but didn't mention that this was not even a year after we lost our baby, and my body had gone through the worst experience of my life. I had to deliver our lifeless baby and then almost died. I felt like a failure for losing our baby, and here he was telling me I was failing as a wife too. I told him he could do whatever he wanted. He talked about how I agreed to let them use the basement, but didn't say how the first weekend after I agreed to this open marriage, he left me with the kids for 3 nights and came back with a $700 charge on our bank account and said if I don't want him to spend so much, I should let him bring girls to the basement. And I ended up saying okay. I would be upstairs crying myself to sleep, feeling like a failure, hoping this would only last a couple months, while he was downstairs with I don't know who. He mentioned that I met another guy, but didn't talk about how I went through this whole period where I'd try to have sex with him more than a couple of times a month, and he'd say, not now, I have someone coming, or no, I'm tired, I just had sex with XYZ. I'd already met someone, but I wanted to put our relationship first and didn't want to start seeing someone else. I kept trying, but it seemed like to him, I was just a babysitter, maid, co-parent, and roommate. I knew he loved me, but he wasn't showing it anymore. I decided to let the other guy in because I wanted to hurt my husband and remind him that I exist. But honestly, being treated like I'm the most amazing person on earth feels good. He puts me first and treats me so well. Now that my husband is realizing that, he's throwing temper tantrums and trying to make me feel bad. He knew I was going to be gone this weekend. I told him that weeks ago. But apparently, since he told me that he's closing the marriage on his side and wanting to reconnect with me, he'd expected me to do the same. Now he's saying I abandoned him and the kids when I didn't. I've always loved my husband, and I want us back to where we were 3 years ago. But I know it will take time. I'm finally feeling like a human being again, and I'm not going to ghost the guy who's helped me get to this point just because my husband is paying attention to me again. I need him to show me more first. I want to know that I want to know that I matter to him, and not just because I get the kids ready for school or cook, but because I'm a human being and he wants me in his life. Since we're asking strangers for opinions, I'm curious. What would you do in my situation if the person you loved treated you the way he treated me? Divorce him.
Leave.
Run.
I would leave. And I don't say that lightly because I know that, we're not married and we don't share children with the man.
They got kids involved.
We don't know how hard that is to do, but I'm just picturing myself in that situation, and hearing this story genuinely made me feel sick.
Yeah, I'm nauseous.
I felt nauseous during that story. And
I need a Zofran.
Yeah. A Zofran. A tequila soda will do, I guess. That story was disgusting, and I think that behavior is disgusting, and I think that she, at the end, kind of says, I want him to treat me like a human, and I want him to... Basically, she's asking for respect, is kind of what I was getting from
The
that.
bare minimum.
The bare minimum. Just
Literally the bare minimum.
to view her as a human, to respect her as such, to see her as more than just a housemaid and a caretaker. And unfortunately, you can't dictate the perception that somebody has of you. He treats you a certain way because he views you a certain way, and you can't force somebody.
It's hard to get that back.
Right.
Once this wall and his level of respect has dropped past that wall, I don't think it's coming back.
Yeah, and even if it does, do you really want it anymore?
He treated you like shit for 3 years?
Right.
However
After
long?
you were grieving, and a trauma that he'll never understand, what your body had to go through as a woman, and to bear a child physically and not be able to bring that child home and have a loss. I know he's experiencing a loss too as a father of this child that they lost, but that you can't say that that's the same type of pain as the woman who physically had to experience that.
Yeah. He just seems like a master manipulator to me.
He's just disgusting. He wanted his cake and eat it too. He got all butthurt because she actually found a real connection while he was filling his void with sex with strangers, whoever he was finding to bring home or go to hotels with. And the fact that he had the audacity to bring those women into their home,
Where their children sleep.
correct. That's where I think I started to get sick. Is the whole thing is a little twisted, but if you want to go to a hotel and pretend like you're this bachelor and kind of like role play, sure, whatever. That's fucked up, but okay. But you're bringing them into your home where your wife is, not even your home, but your home where your wife is home. And I'm assuming your kids were home too.
Yeah, and who knows how old they are, but kids are perceptive.
Yeah.
So perceptive.
Yeah.
So who knows? And I'm sure they realize their mom's crying. If she's crying herself to sleep every night,
Yeah.
kids hear that. Kids pick up on that.
Feel that, yeah. The whole thing. What I would do if I were in her position is I would leave, and you've found another person who shows you what it feels like to be honored and respected and treated correctly.
Yeah.
I'm not a big advocate for leaving a situation only to run to another person, because then I think that you're misplacing your own value in other people and you're kind of seeking external validation. But I do think that this person, whether she ends up with that new person, is at least teaching her that it doesn't need to be so ugly and painful.
Yeah. I agree. I think this whole situation is a mess from top to bottom. One of the more toxic ones, for sure. I don't know a lot about open relationships or poly relationships, but I do know that it never should be done out of manipulation or a guilt trip. It needs to be very established that both partners want it. It's to benefit everyone. And I came across another post that will come up eventually, but they referenced a poly group on Reddit. So out of curiosity, went and looked at it. And this group preaches nothing but open communication, honesty, being very transparent with your chosen partner, your married partner if you are married, or just being very open. And so I look at this and it's he kind of forced her hand to open the marriage. One, manipulation, I don't know if you'd call that abuse, but emotional abuse, yeah, probably, because she was at a very trying time, and everything she describes sounds like fucking hell.
Yeah.
But then, for him, like you said, once she finds someone that has a connection, he was jealous. He was like, well, I didn't think anyone would actually want my wife, but now that I can't have her, I'm closing this down.
Right.
I'm gonna manipulate this situation even further
Right.
so she doesn't get any ounce of fucking happiness.
Absolutely.
I'm going to drain it all.
Yeah, and I think the big difference between him and her, I mean, there's a lot of differences, but one thing I see in the coping mechanism is that he is going and seeking out, I mean, I guess I'm assuming here because he's not the OP or the writer.
Yeah.
But he's going out and getting this like physical pleasure and this sexual indulgence with these multiple partners. And
Yeah.
it's probably just a temporary fix, a fleeting feeling of satisfaction versus she went out and found this like one person, this consistent partner who's showing her respect and love and care. And there's nothing, I mean, if I were him, I'd be jealous too.
Yep.
I'd be like, I'm over here just filling voids however I can with these people who don't mean anything to me. And you have somebody who cares about you now and is showing you respect, showing you what I'm not showing you. So of course he's like threatened.
Yeah.
She found a real connection.
I think that's too, like, it shows how abusive their relationship is, how toxic it is, especially because of the fact, like, I feel like abusers, and this is my opinion from what I've experienced, but abusers start to care more or start to acknowledge you more or like kind of tighten their claws when they realize you're slipping away, when they realize they've lost their control. So for him, it's probably this point where he's like, oh, she's moving on. I'm losing my control over her.
Yeah.
I had her on the side doing everything for our kids, blah, 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 blah. And now I'm losing my control. And so he's like, oop, can't let that happen. Reel her back
Reel her
in.
back in.
Because the fact he went on Reddit and was like, she's leaving me. She abandoned me with the kids. Like,
He's trying to rewrite the narrative
Yeah.
and victimize himself.
God, I wish I would have, like, I almost wish I would have read this before because then I would have tried to find his post. And I don't think, maybe some Reddit Instagram account will find it someday and I'll